Hey, let's talk about the 3 rules, specifically the 3 rules for leaders. Now, we have 3 rules for groups also, and also 3 rules for leaders. And so the purpose of the rules is not to make you feel bad about being a rule breaker, but really to define this is what it means to be a leader at Whitewater. This is what it means to be a group at Whitewater. So if you are a leader, this is my expectation for you. Now, there's all kinds of things that leaders do, like on a department by department basis at Whitewater, right? Or in this ministry area or that ministry area. There's all kinds of different things. But for me, this is stuff that is universal. If you are a leader at Whitewater, you should be doing these things, all right? And so here we go. Let's clear that. There are 3 rules that if you're leading anything, but especially if you're leading a small group, you need to follow these. This needs to be part of your life. And the first is this, all right? Every leader needs to be an owner shepherd. You're like, an owner shepherd? What's the deal with that? Well, in John 10, Jesus describes himself with this famous phrase. He says, I am the good shepherd, right? And you're like, the good shepherd? He says, yeah, I'm the good shepherd. I'm not like the hireling. The good shepherd is not like the hireling, because when the wolf comes, the hireling cuts and runs and leaves the sheep alone because they're not his sheep, right? You guys have been around people like this. It's like, hey, not my department. Hey, not my problem. I'm going to pass it up the chain, let somebody else deal with it, right? But Jesus says, no. That's not how we do things. The owner, the good shepherd, is like the one who owns the sheep, and they protect them. He protects them because they're his. So there is a lot of stuff that you might do that you might think is your job as a small group leader. All right? You're like, well, I lead all the discussions. When we get together, I'm the one who leads the discussions. But I'll tell you, the best groups I've been in, I don't know that you'd be able to tell when you walked into the group who was leading the discussion, because based on what was happening, like everybody's pitching in and we're all contributing. But even if there's a specific person that's leading it, you as the leader, maybe you delegate that, right? Maybe you delegate it to a different person every week. Maybe you just delegate it to the same person every week. You can still be the leader even if you're not the one who's actively leading each discussion. You say, well, I've got the group. The group is my group because it meets at my house, right? Because that's what I do as the leader. It's my house that we meet at. Well, it could be, but man, maybe there's somebody in your group that has the gift of hospitality, and you could just pass that to them, and they would hate to lead the group discussion, but maybe they would love to host. You think, well, man, I'm the leader, so it's really my job to communicate with everybody and send out reminder emails, and here's what's going on, here's what we're doing. That's good. I mean, it's good to do those things, but again, that's something that maybe you have somebody in your group who's kind of administratively minded. They could kind of own those email pieces. You think, well, I always bring the snacks, right? Like I always cook the really gooey brownies or chocolate chip cookies or whatever it is. Now I'm hungry. So I always bring the snacks. Okay, you could delegate that, right? Well, I plan out fun outings for us, or I plan our outreach things. Like all of that stuff can be delegated. I'm not saying it has to be, but it could be. The thing that's not negotiable is somebody somewhere has to say, this is my group and these are my people. And I'm not, and I'll die on that hill. And so I'm not going to walk away. And so I don't mean this in a creepy way, but somebody has to own the group. You could delegate all of the specific functions that we associate with leadership, but this thing can't be delegated. So if you're a group leader, I'm open to you delegating anything you want to delegate, but fundamentally you have to say, no, I own this. This is my thing. I'm going to take ownership. I'm not saying, it's great if everybody takes ownership, but at the minimum, the leader has to take ownership. A group where the leader hasn't taken ownership and doesn't feel like, man, these are my people, is a group that's not going to last long enough to develop any of the other stuff we talk about. All right. So rule number 1 is you got to be a owner shepherd. The second rule for leaders is that you can't lead more than 10. You personally can't lead more than 10. And I used to say 10, and now I'm convinced it's actually even lower. But you can't lead more than 10. Jesus, the best leader ever in the history of the world, had 12, and one of them didn't work out. So if you think you're better than Jesus, you can go ahead and have a small group of 15. Now, as I said, small group of 15, notice You can't lead more than 10. That doesn't mean the group can't have more than 10 people in it. It just means you're going to need some help, all right? Because you will not be able to keep up with more than 10 people, and probably even fewer than that. So I figure I've got 10 fingers, so that's about as many people as I can keep up with. This is called span of care. This idea comes out of Exodus 18. Moses is complaining about how many people he has to care for, and his father-in-law is like, what are you, an idiot? Like, here's some basic management theory of the Bronze Age. You need to break up this whole kingdom that you're trying to lead. You need to break it up into tens, into 50s, into hundreds, and into thousands, and then each let everybody take care of their own thing so that the load is spread. So when I talk to somebody who says that they're responsible for 15 people in their small group or 18 people, I think that just sounds like death, because you can't really lead them well. You can show a meeting where 18 people show up, but you can't lead 18 people, all right? So if you want to actually lead 18 people, then maybe what you need to do is lead 3 who are each leading 6, right? Like that might be a little better. Or if you're married, maybe you say, well, I'm going to lead the men and my wife's going to lead the women, or vice versa, whatever it is, or something, right? You got to figure that out. But span of care is important. What we want for you is more than just to launch a good meeting. We want these people actually to be under the care and feeding of the small group leader, and you just can't do that with more than 10. Okay. The last thing is also real straightforward, and that is, I like to call peanut butter and tomato. Doesn't that sound delicious? Peanut butter and tomato? No, the last thing is nobody leads alone. Let's go to the next line there. PBT. And it doesn't stand for peanut butter and tomato. It stands for Paul, Barnabas, Timothy. All right, so if you're a small group leader, I'm going to put you right here. And this is gender neutral, so I don't care. I'm going to say Paul, Paulina, right, whatever. It doesn't matter. If you're a small group leader, you need to have relationships with other small group leaders or other people kind of like you. You need to have some peer relationships, and that's kind of a Barnabas type relationship. Is somebody who's next to me and we're peers. You also need to have a relationship with someone kind of upstream from you, somebody who has been where you are, somebody who can invest in you, and you also need to be investing in someone else, right? You need to have a Timothy, to use a gender neutral Timothy, right? You need to have a Paul, you need to have a Barnabas, you need to have a Timothy. You need to have someone who is investing into you, you need to have somebody who you are investing in, and you need to have some peer relationships as well. Now, hopefully this Paul could be your coach. Your coach doesn't have to be your Paul. I'm okay. I personally, for me, Micah, personally, I have probably 4 guys that I meet with on the regular that are kind of my Pauls and that are investing in me, that are leaving a deposit in my life. And I have a bunch of people that I'm investing in on the other side, and I have Barnabas relationships as well. So this is what keeps me sane and healthy and growing, and you need the same thing I need, okay? So this is it. If you're going to be a leader at Whitewater, the first thing is you're going to be an owner shepherd. You think, well, that's not how it works. I'm a leader at my work, and I don't have to do all this crap. I just tell people what to do, and they do it, right? Well, that's true, because at your work, you have authority. You have maybe some sort of a position, or maybe not at work. Maybe it's at school or on a team or whatever. You're at a place, and you get to tell people what to do. And you get to boss people around because you're the boss, right? The difficulty with that is that Jesus specifically says, the rulers of this world lord it over them, right? Don't be like that. Jesus specifically says, don't lead. Now, there's good leadership principles you can learn anywhere, right? But Jesus specifically says, don't lead essentially through power. Don't let that be your leadership lens. Instead, you need to lead like this. You need to serve. You need to be an owner shepherd, right? You need to make sure that you've got a span of care of people that you can actually care for. So you can't lead more than 10. Exodus 18 is our passage there if you want to look that up. And the last thing is, I don't want anybody leading alone, right? I want everybody to have a Paul, a Barnabas, and a Timothy. And so this means I should be able to come up to you as a small group leader and say, Who are you investing in? And you should have a name that comes to mind. Now, I know that maybe you didn't know that you were signing up for that when you signed up to be a small group leader. That's okay. But there might be one or two people in your group that you're thinking like, no, I'm putting a little bit extra in them. Jesus had the 12, but he also had the 3, Peter, James, and John. He spent extra time with the 3. He did a lot of stuff with the 12, right? But he spent extra time with the 3. I would encourage you to have a couple extra people in your group that you're just giving them a little bit extra, all right? So that's your Timothy. You've got some peer relationships. We're going to try and do some more things in the upcoming year to set up peer relationships for our small group leaders. And you need a Paul. You need somebody who's investing in you. We're trying to provide that through our coaching network, but whatever it is that you want to do, I'm open to it. All right. But this is what you need if you're going to lead a Whitewater. This is definitely what you need if you're going to be leading a Whitewater small group. All right. So these three rules, they're not there to beat you up. They're there to define. This is how you know if you're leading. Right? And this is the standard that I want you to set. So there's a lot of other stuff that we're going to cover in this set of trainings about like how to handle specific things. And that's all good and useful information. But this is kind of fundamental identity type stuff. Like this is key. You need to do this if you're going to be a leader at Whitewater. All right? Now I've also got 3 rules for groups, and we're going to get to those in the next video. Thanks, guys. See you soon.